Hello, and welcome. I'm Dave the Wanderer. If this is your first time here, that may sound like a funny name. Since I was a kid, I have always loved the idea of a wandering storyteller. Since there aren't any taverns full of people waiting to hear a story these days, I've opted for the next best way to be a wandering storyteller. This channel. So sit back, relax, and prepare for an adventure. Hello, and welcome. This week we are continuing on our story, Riftlander, as Bridgeguard Captain Bastion Frel and Bridgeguard Master Alva Gronwall fight for their lives against the demon hordes. Without further ado, here is Riftlander, Part 2. He panted, his vision blurred as he spun. His breaths came in short, quick gasps as he battled his foe. The thunk, thunk of his axe as it embedded and withdrew from demon flesh spurred him on. The world around him froze in time as he swung again and again. Limbs of monstrous beasts grasped and clawed at him. Bridgeguard Master Gronwall leaned back, bending awkwardly as claws narrowly raked across his vision. They did not catch much flesh, but the bright spurt of blood belied his misfortune. Time stood still as the roar of battle coalesced around him. Screams of the dying and the vulgar taunts of the hellspawn echoed through the pass. A brute twice as wide as a bull, and half again as tall, roared in defiance. Its grotesque face was a mix of bull and serpent. Its jaws slapped with green slime, and spittle flew from its mouth as it roared. 6 arms sprouted from its torso. Gronwall turned his axe into an upswing. He felt the crushing bones of the demon as his axe severed limbs. It roared again, and 2 massive arms clubbed the Bridgeguard Master in the side of his head. Ringing rose in his ears, and the din of battle grew quiet again. He could only hear the pulsating song that throbbed in his head. Gronwall's vision blurred, and he swung his axe violently as the approaching beast came near. He felt metal bite into flesh and bone again. He stumbled back, off balance from the juggernaut's slug. The throbbing slowed. The sound of battle rose again.
"Hold the line!"
Gronwall bellowed above the cries of the dying.
"Bridgeguard, hold the line!"
He leapt back into the fray. Demons surrounded him, and he swung for all his life. The axe in his hand became an extension of his being. Blood splashed around his feet. Visions of demonic faces danced around him. He did not stop. Swiping the axe left and right, up and down, he slew them. Cries of anguish and roars of anger shook his thought. He could not focus on any one beast. The axe was his focus, the extension of his will.
"Bridgeguard!"
He roared as the axe fell again. The sick, crushing sound of flesh and bone tore through the bloodlust. Gronwall saw red everywhere he looked. Demon blood, demon flesh, human blood, human flesh.
"Bridgeguard!"
His voice cracked. "Bridgeguard!" Gronwall heard the return cry of his warriors. A dozen wounds bled across his abdomen and chest. A dozen more scored his back. He felt nothing but the lust for battle. Still, he slowed. The axe grew heavier with each strike. He continued to roar his cry of battle, and the soldiers continued to roar it back at him. Something clipped him in the chin. It felt like iron. A cool breeze surrounded him as he left his feet. He felt as if he were flying. The ground rose up to meet his back as he landed with a breathtaking thud. He gasped for air, gasped for breath as his vision blackened. He tried to cry out, but it came as a pained wheeze. He could not feel the grip of the axe any longer. Deeper and deeper, his vision grew, until he lost the struggle to breathe. Darkness closed around him. Dead littered the field as the exodus of men continued to the west. Bastion led them atop his horse, with his axe hanging low at his side. He made sure to keep it clear of the mount, but he did not want to be caught unprepared. His shield lay in the field, along with his sword and his former soldier Mason. The bloated, dead face of that soldier floated in his vision and threatened to catapult him into despair. Instead, he focused his rage on the demon army that was beyond the small forest. The dark wood lay between the Bridgeguard Keep and the westernmost part of the rift. Men claimed the forest was haunted, but after what he had seen, Bastion did not care. The land rolled before them. Slowly, the dots of tree stumps and thick grass came into view. Gradually, they entered the forest. Bastion held his head high, gave his soldiers a determined, grim look, and he nodded, and wheeled his mount around and kicked its flanks. The beast whinnied as they entered the wood. The stench of death was palpable. It was as if the wood itself was the personification of death. The scent grew as the chill wind picked up and drafted across the army. A distant cry echoed among the trees. Bastion looked back to the panicked faces of the men. He did not want to be here, but he put on a brave front. They had already fought through so much to ensure the survival of the Bridgeguard, of the world. He did not call to them, nor did he give them reason to pause. Bastion led his mount forward as dark descended on the woods. "Stand strong," he motioned with his axe. "Forward." Bastion's battle-weary voice barked with determination. The call went back through the remainder of the ranks and repeated. The force of it pushed back the chill, and the men began to sing. The song started low and baritone as the men echoed it to one another. It rose in a crescendo as it reached back to Bastion. His heart swelled with pride, and he joined his voice to the armies. "Raw, take my blood. Raw, take my name. Raw, take my wealth. Raw, raw, give me pain. Raw, cut my limbs. Raw, take your aim. Raw, for if you don't, raw, I strike. Raw, take your blood. Raw, take your name. Raw, take your wealth. Raw, take your life at my blade. Raw." The sound echoed through the woods, and the men stood proud and tall. Beneath the raucous cries of the army, there was a cracking, twisting sound. Bastion heard it, but only barely. He scanned the area looking for the cause, and then saw it. One of the massive deadwoods shifted. He didn't know how else to explain it, other than it appeared to move, bending toward the army. One who lived near the rift was keen to sudden changes in reality. A squirrel with rabid red eyes, or a river that flowed in the wrong direction, or a tree that moved against the wind. "To arms!" Bastion cried as he leapt from the back of his horse. His instinct to leap from the beast proved to his benefit, for a moment later a wicker tree branch struck out and impaled the animal. Blood sprayed as the horse howled in agony. The tree seemed to surge as the animal grew thin. The howling cry of the horse died in a death rattle. With his axe drawn and at the ready, Bastion swung with all his might. The curved blade struck the branch a foot above the horse's dying body. The axe splintered the wood. Viscous fluid sprayed in every direction. Blood and tree sap oozed from where the tree had been wounded. "High Baskar's blood," one of the Bridgeguard soldiers cursed. "It was eating that horse like a blood fly." Bastion turned to the soldier with obvious surprise on his face. He heard the creaking clearly this time, and pushed the soldier down. Another branch struck where the man had been standing. Bastion chopped down on the branch with his axe, as a cry came from the back of the ranks. The axe cut through the branch and the tree sap oozed from it. The cry of a man behind them was cut off. He could see the top of another massive tree moving where he'd heard the cry. "Through the woods, keep moving. Take whatever attacks of opportunity you have, but do not get caught fighting them. Through the woods!" Bastion cried as he began to jaunt forward. His muscled legs ached with extra exertion after so much fighting. His blood pumped. There was thunder in his ears again, but still, he listened for the creak. Bridgeguard Master Gronwall ached. He sat up slowly as his bones cracked and popped. He knew he was getting too old to be fighting on the front lines, but his family had been sworn protectors of the Riftlands for centuries. Gronwall would die fighting. He knew it. He hoped for it. The prospect of an easy retirement did not sit well with him. He had taken no wife, or no sons to succeed him. Gronwall's life had been given to the service of the Bridgeguard. He would see that duty to the end. As he contemplated his surroundings, he realized he was still in Maker's Pass. The ravine carried the stench of death and sulfur. He stood and stretched. His old bones creaked and cracked some more. Several of his men turned to look at him, but they said nothing.
What's the situation then?
He growled. "We're pinned down." Bridgeguard Captain Macklin saluted.
"Stop it,"
Gronwall said.
"There's no time for formality. Where are we?"
"We've taken position behind the fallen rocks from above. It's a sheltered alcove, but we can't hold it forever. Eventually, the demons will recoup."
"Recoup?"
Gronwall barked.
"You let them get away to recoup their losses and regroup?"
The soldier looked at Gronwall and then stammered. "You were injured. We had..." Gronwall stepped to the man.
"Shut up. You should have let me die." How grave is it? Have they regrouped?
No, Macklin replied. They've withdrawn some, but they haven't had a chance to regroup.
Then we attack now. How many men are left?
A third of our forces is slain. Half the remaining 2/3 are injured, Macklin reported.
2/3 then. Prepare the men. They can walk. They fight. They can't. They're already dead. Let's go.
Men stared in astonishment at their leader. He had just sentenced men to die who could have helped. Macklin looked at Gronwall gravely, but he understood. The old man lost more men than had been born in the last 10 years. Half of the injured here wouldn't survive if the demons attacked. They might keep those able to survive from doing so. Macklin knew this was the world he lived in, and still, it left a dirty taste in his mouth. Pack up and arm yourselves. We're killing some of those demons, Macklin roared. Take my blood! Raw! The men picked up the song and sang it as they charged into battle. Gronwall charged at their head and prepared himself for death. He worried that Bridgeguard had fallen. No runners had come to signify help or that the siege engines were destroyed. He knew that a runner might have been killed or worse, captured. The thought did not give him any confidence. He roared as his axe bit into demon flesh. Thanks for listening. That was part 2 of Riftlander. Tune in next Tuesday for part 3. As always, if you like the story, give it a like. If you want to hear more, click that subscribe button. Until next time, I'm Dave the Wanderer, and this has been Audio Storytime.